This little session's about MXF for contribution, or AS11, and the involvement of the Digital Production Partnership. I'm Ian Wimsett from Red Bee Media. I'm Senior Technologist there. So AMWA produces a number of application specifications, and if you've looked at their website or any of the documentation, you'll see the application specifications go through most of the workflow through acquisition, post, distribution, delivery, and archive. It's just a sample workflow. It might not be quite in that order, of course, but you can see there are specifications for MXF for production AS10, versioning AS02, MXF for delivery AS03, MXF for commercial distribution at the bottom for AS12, and the one we're interested in today, MXF for contribution AS11. So, what was the business problem we were trying to solve when we started to use AS11? Because it's there for a good reason. So in the UK, what we wanted to do was to provide a consistent, high-volume delivery mechanism for high bitrate, finished HD program content, obviously by file. Because at the moment, the environment we have in the UK is one mostly of HD delivery on tape. So we have broadcaster A, and they commission production company A to deliver a program. And what they do is the production company has an internal workflow. They dump their program onto a tape. The tape gets picked up by a courier. The courier dispatches it to the broadcaster ingests it again into a different file format, and everyone's happy. So it's pretty inefficient, but it works quite well. Similarly, broadcaster B comes along and they order a program from the same production company, and the production company uses exactly the same workflow. They make their program, dump it onto a tape, courier to the broadcaster, and everything works fine. And you can see where we're going here. So production company B gets commissioned to make a program. They do exactly the same thing. They stick it on a tape, and they put the tape on a bike or on a van, and they send it to the broadcaster. And everyone does exactly the same thing. And if you do a survey of the delivery formats in the tape-based world for HD delivery, you find, in the UK at least, there's pretty much one. It's an HD Cam SR tape. It's very interoperable. Everyone knows exactly what to do with it. Works really well. But it's pretty inefficient because you have all those processes which you don't really want to do to get from a file at the production company to a file at the broadcaster. So in the UK, what we wanted to do was to manage file delivery as we migrated the production companies from tape-based delivery. And it was starting to happen a bit already. It wasn't just there was no file delivery, it was mostly tape and a bit of file stuff. But unfortunately, what was happening was this. Broadcaster A would commission a program from production company A, and Broadcaster A, we found, had some video servers that happened to like MPEG files in a QuickTime wrapper. So they said, oh, please send us one of those, we'll be fine with that. Unfortunately, Broadcaster B, who also commissioned a program from the production company, have a different breed of servers, and they quite like to have MPEG in MXF. So now the poor old production company has to do its entire workflow, then wrap up its file in a different way and send two different versions out. The same happens to production company B. They're commissioned by the broadcaster A and B, and they similarly have to cope with two different distribution formats. But it can get worse than this. Broadcaster C comes along, and actually they haven't defined their file delivery specification yet. So they go off to production company C and say, please make me a program. And it just happens that's an all P2 piece of production. So they say, okay, we'll send you an AVC file in an MXF wrapper and everything will be fine. Broadcaster C says, oh, okay, I'll take that if I have to. Broadcaster B, on the other hand, they commission something from the production company, and this time it's an all Apple workflow because it's a different production team. So this time, Broadcaster B ends up with a ProRes file in a QuickTime wrapper. So things are getting quite complicated now. And then, not to be outdone, Broadcaster C commissions a program from production company A, and this time they want to put the program in their deep archive. They don't just want to play it to air. So they ask for a high bitrate version, and this is an Avid workflow, so they get a DNX185 file in an MXF wrapper. So you can see the complexity here. And if you do a quick comparison of the delivery formats that are in place, just using my simple example, you can see there are at least five different specifications in use. And when you look at there's different bit rates, different codecs, and the audio configuration is really significantly different with numbers of different audio tracks. And that was kind of how the world was developing in the UK, and we really wanted to stop it getting any worse. So we needed a bit of leadership and a bit of coordination in the UK broadcast industry, which is where the Digital Production Partnerships comes in on the act. It was the an initiative formed in 2010 by the UK's public service broadcasters to help exactly with this problem and to help with the migration of production companies from tape-based workflows to file-based workflows. And it's funded jointly by ITV, by the BBC and by Channel 4, but it also has representation from many of the other broadcasters in the UK, including Channel 5, Sky, S4C, and some of the independent sector, which is where I come in on the show. And these slides, these next few slides, are provided by the DPP themselves. So their reason for being in existence was because, as we all know, it's a well-tried and tested phrase, isn't it? But the broadcast industry is still undergoing major change, and especially at the production end of the market, there's still a lot of transition going on from tape-based working to file-based working, and that's been really made worse as we started to commission programs in HD from those production companies. So though later parts of the workflow have worked in the file-based world pretty well, the acquisition and production company part has been pretty not very comprehensive, shall we say. And of course, there's still some convergence going on between broadcast and IT systems. What's really made this happen is the mass uptake of tapeless cameras, which have now been specified for use in the UK. So there's a file being made somewhere. Is it the right one? How do we transport it across? And the increased use of IT technologies, again, the poor old production community are really not used to this at all. So what we tried to do was to give the production team some guidance to manage their file-based workflows. What we found that they tended to do was to copy their tape-based workflows, but with a file instead. And actually, far from making it more efficient, this actually made it more inefficient because they had to do new processes. They had lots of problems with backing up their files and all sorts of things, and they simply weren't making a good job of it. So we had to give them some advice. And there's still very significant confusion about codecs, file formats, and delivery standards, so we need to hold their hand a bit there. So there was a need for industry standardization, both to minimize inefficiencies and to enable interoperability. So the DPP set themselves some objectives. The key one for us was to achieve a common HD file-based delivery and metadata delivery standard for all of the major UK broadcasters. So this is a big initiative, actually, and that was published in January this year and centers on the SLevan specification from AMWA. So we're asking all the production companies in the UK who deliver to DPP broadcasters to use this specification and this specification only. They had a couple of other objectives as well. They wanted to make a complete move to file-based delivery for broadcasters in the UK, starting in 2012 this year, but to be finished by 2014. So 100% file delivery is the objective by 2014, and we knew it would take us at least 2 years to get there. We also wanted to issue some advice on best practice workflows, and we've written a report and some advice which we're going to give away free to the production community in the UK to try and help them on their way, as well as running some workshops and other sessions where they can just turn up for free and they can discuss workflows between them, and we can tell them how to make files if they need that kind of assistance. So to make the file delivery specification, we actually didn't have to start from scratch, which was quite good. In the tape-based world, the DPP already had a specification in place that described what went on the tape, the program content, that is, the line up the slate, the program content that went on it, what the video and audio levels should be, and what the QC requirements were at the point where the tape was delivered to the broadcaster. So all we needed to do then was to turn the tape, which went between the production company and the broadcaster, into a common file format. Sounds easy, doesn't it? So if we just go back to the AMWA application specifications for a moment, you'll notice there's one that's already called MXF for delivery ASO3, and you might wonder why we didn't just use that, because it sounds like it's really fit for purpose. Unfortunately, it was designed for final delivery of a program file to a playout type station. In other words, for final use for nothing else. Nothing else was going to happen to that file apart from playout. And as such, it has an upper limit of 50 megabits a second. But in Europe, we have a bit of a very common workflow that kind of goes like this. The production companies asked to make the program, and they deliver that original program to what I've called here the contractual delivery point. So this is the point, once they've delivered their program, they get paid. This is the important part, really. And generally, the file arrives in some kind of media gateway or MAM system. Then at some point later, that program is scheduled for playout, linear channel playout, and the automation system comes and gets the file, or the MAM system pushes it. And then it's emission coded at the end, and then distributed off to the end users. But between times, what actually happens is that file's taken out of the MAM system and goes through a set of creative workflows where the promotions department take that original file and they make some other versions of it, a single promotion or perhaps multiple promotions, and of course those have to be sent off to the automation system as well. But similarly, the file is also taken by the versioning department and it goes through a set of compliance workflows. And this is because the original program that was commissioned was for a specific channel. And perhaps it has to be reworked to make a pre-watershed version for something that was originally post-watershed, or maybe it didn't have any ad breaks in it to start with and now it needs some, or maybe it had some ad breaks that need to now be in a different place. So it's pretty common to end up with multiple complied versions of the same program original. And of course all those 3 files that we've now produced have to go off to the on-demand area for transcoding and packaging. And what was the important thing was to try and make sure that the video quality of all of those assets was equal. What we found was that with lower bit rates, once we'd done the emission coding and distributed it to the home, we found that if we had bit rates lower than, well, about 100 megabits as we're about to see, then you could see artifacts on the output. So after lots of testing, the DPP came up with a set of chosen technologies, and they chose to use the AVC Intra 100 codec in an MXF wrapper. They wanted to have discrete stereo and discrete multi-channel audio, and they wanted to have some kind of transport mechanism for production metadata. So this is the information that's written on the bit of paper that normally goes in the tape box, but now of course you have no mechanism to carry that. So if you send the file to your broadcast station, they don't know what to do with the file unless you have this information there. So although ASO3 looked like it was a pretty good candidate for the job and had all the tools inside it, we had to make a few tweaks just to make it suitable for UK delivery requirements. So here's AS11, issued version 1.0 on January the 18th this year. It's a free download from amwa.tv. You don't need to be a member of AMWA to download it. You can get it for nothing. Please download it and use it if you wish to. It's based on ASO3, as we said, and it adds bit rates above 50 megabits a second, and it specifically adds AVC Intra Class 100 High Intra 422 profile at level 4.1, as defined by SMPTE RP 2027-2011, or AVC Intra 100 if you want to give it a shorthand term. We took the opportunity also to add in AS11 some legacy SD formats for 50 megabit D10 with AS3 support. It just turns out that the DPP broadcasters in the UK have large SD back catalogues, and at some point they want to be able to deliver those by file as well. So we just took the opportunity to add that into the AS11 specification explicitly.